concrete walls and broken ties. The asphalt of South Central LA was the only true witness to the bond between Mark and Jason. From the moment they were old enough to dribble a ragged basketball on the broken courts of their neighborhood, they were a unit. They shared everything: their last dollar, the hand-me-down sneakers, and the mutual burning desire to one day make it out of the gridlock. Mark was the planner, grounded and reliable. Jason was the charismatic fire, always chasing the next high-risk, high-reward moment. They were brothers forged not by blood but by concrete and shared struggle. Their world expanded when Aisha came along. Mark fell hard first, drawn to her steady calm and bright laugh. When they married, Jason stood as the best man, swearing to Mark that he would protect them both until his last breath. For a time, they formed a perfect triangle of stability. Mark worked 2 jobs, Aisha built a life, and Jason was the funny uncle, the constant presence at every family barbecue and quiet Sunday afternoon. But the inner city, they knew, had a way of twisting promises into knots. Mark worked grueling hours, chasing the stability he always craved. In his absence, the comfortable familiarity between Jason and Aisha began to fray at the edges of loyalty. It started with long conversations over coffee, shared exhaustion, and the silent acknowledgement of Mark's perpetual absence. It ended one rainy night when the boundaries blurred irrevocably. The betrayal was compounded by consequence. Aisha told Mark 6 months later, her words weak against the roar of his disbelief. The baby was Jason's. The confrontation didn't happen in the streets, but in the sterile quiet of Mark and Aisha's small living room. Mark didn't yell. He looked at Jason, his eyes twin wells of absolute devastating loss. "You took everything," Mark said, his voice a low, vibrating rumble. "My peace, my home, my family, and the one thing I thought I knew about this life, that you were my brother." Jason offered no defense, only a single choked apology that Mark dismissed with a sharp cutting wave of his hand. That day, the friendship didn't just end, it was vaporized. 15 years passed and the wound never scabbed over. Mark divorced Aisha but stayed in the neighborhood, a phantom of his former self, dedicated solely to his work. Jason, who had a daughter with Aisha, a bright girl named Lena, was now forced into proximity, the father Mark should have been. They were mortal enemies defined by a geography they couldn't escape. They moved through the same city blocks, shopped at the same markets, and drove past the same school gates, but they never made eye contact. When their paths occasionally crossed, a fleeting shadow in a grocery aisle or a brief sighting across a street, the air would turn brittle and cold. The shared history, once a source of strength, was now a volatile chemical. They didn't need fists or weapons. The constant, silent acknowledgement